All right, welcome to this explainer. Today we are breaking down what is easily one of the most paradigm-shifting and, frankly, kind of controversial business philosophies of our time. We're talking about Peter Thiel's 0 to 1. Whether you're out there building a startup, leading a team, or if you're just fascinated by how the future actually gets built, this framework is absolutely going to challenge almost everything you think you know about business. So let's just get right into it.
What important truth do very few people agree with you on? Now, this is Peter Thiel's famous interview question, and it is honestly the ultimate hook for our discussion today. I mean, it sounds super simple, right? But try answering it. It's incredibly difficult. You can't just state a known fact. You actually have to reveal a contrarian truth. And Thiel argues that this exact contrarian mindset, that is the fundamental key to building the future.
So here is our roadmap for today. 1. Progress 0 to 1. 2. Competition is for losers. 3. Planning a definite future. 4. Secrets, cults, and sales. And 5. 7 questions for innovation. Okay, kicking things off with section 1. Progress 0 to 1. To really understand true progress, we actually have to unlearn the dogmas of the past. Think back to the massive dot-com crash in the late 90s and early 2000s. After that happened, the business world got completely spooked. They adopted these 4 safe rules. Only make incremental advances, stay lean and unplanned, slightly improve on your competitors, and focus entirely on the product over sales. But here's where it gets interesting. Thiel argues that to build a truly great company, you basically need to do the exact opposite. You have to risk boldness over triviality. You need a plan. And you have to realize that competitive markets actually destroy profits. So we fundamentally have 2 ways to make progress. The first is horizontal progress. This is like taking a typewriter and selling it globally. It's going from 1 to N by just copying what already works. The second way, though, is vertical progress. This is going from 0 to 1. This is inventing the word processor. True progress requires creating something fundamentally new, which Thiel defines as technology, not just copy-pasting what already exists. Moving right along to section 2, competition is for losers. We are directly challenging one of capitalism's most deeply held beliefs here. Just listen to this quote. If you can recognize competition as a destructive force instead of a sign of value, you're already more sane than most. I mean, wow. We are always taught that competition is healthy, right? But Thiel points out that in a state of perfect competition, businesses are so heavily focused on just surviving day to day, fighting tooth and nail over razor-thin margins, that they simply cannot afford to invest in the future. They are literally trapped in the present. To put that into perspective, take a look at the U.S. airline industry. They generate hundreds of billions in sales, creating tremendous value by flying us all over the world. But the market is highly competitive, and because of that, their profit margins are incredibly tiny. Now compare that to Google, a creative monopoly. Google actually has fewer total sales than the entire airline industry, but they keep a massive percentage of their revenue as pure profit. Since nobody really competes with them in search, that monopoly status gives Google the breathing room and the capital to invest in radical future technologies. Now, we've all heard of the first mover advantage, but honestly, being first is just a tactic. What you really want is the last mover advantage. The ultimate goal is to make the final great development in a market. You don't just attack a giant market right out of the gate. You dominate a tiny niche where you have 0 competition. Kind of like how Facebook started exclusively at Harvard, or how PayPal focused only on eBay power sellers at first. You dominate that small pond, and then you scale up to the ocean. Which brings us to section 3, planning a definite future. Creating a monopoly doesn't just happen by accident, okay? It requires a very specific view of the future. You can break this down by optimism versus pessimism, and whether you think the future is definite or indefinite. For example, indefinite optimists think things will get better, but they just sort of float along without a real plan, which is actually a major problem in today's society. The real golden ticket here is definite optimism. This is the absolute conviction that the future will be better, but only because you are going to make concrete plans to build it. This is the exact mindset that built the Apollo program, and it's an absolute prerequisite if you want a successful startup. Because the harsh truth is this. You are not a lottery ticket. If you view the future as a random roll of the dice, you've already psychologically prepared yourself to lose. Darwinism and random evolution? Sure, that might be a totally fine theory for biology. But in business, intelligent design works best. You absolutely have to take agency over your venture. All right, section 4, secrets, cults, and sales. So forget the ping pong tables and the free kombucha on tap for a second. Thiel argues that a company doesn't have a culture, a company is a culture. And the best cultures, well, they look a lot like a cult from the outside. They are built by rallying a team of full-time, fully aligned conspirators around an important contrarian truth, a secret that the rest of the world has completely missed. You aren't just hiring mercenaries for a paycheck, you're recruiting fellow conspirators to go out and change the world. But having a great secret product isn't enough. Nerds love to believe that a great product just magically sells itself. It doesn't. Sales are the invisible engine of the world. Depending on your customer acquisition cost, you need a very specific distribution channel. Huge enterprise software, that needs million-dollar complex sales. Everyday consumer goods, cheap marketing works, but you really have to beware of the dead zone. If your product brings in about $1,000, it's too cheap to afford a dedicated salesperson, but it's too expensive for standard online ads to actually convert. So many startups literally die right there in that dead zone. Finally, let's hit section 5, 7 questions for innovation. If you want to know if a company is actually going to make it, run them through these 7 questions. Engineering. Is the tech literally 10 times better than the alternative? Timing. Is now the right time? Monopoly. Are you dominating a small market? People. Do you have the right aligned team? Distribution. Can you actually sell the thing? Durability. Will you still be defending this position in 10 or 20 years? And lastly, secret. Do you see a unique opportunity that others don't? A truly great company has to have solid answers to these. So what happens when you actually apply that checklist in the real world? Let's take the green energy sector around 2012. A lot of government-backed clean tech firms completely crashed and went bankrupt. And according to Thiel's analysis, it's because they ignored these core questions. They didn't have 10x better engineering, they jumped straight into hyper-competitive markets, and they basically relied on general societal trends rather than a unique secret. On the flip side, Tesla succeeded massively because they nailed all 7. They started with a small monopoly, the high-end luxury roadster, they owned their own distribution, and their engineering was just leaps and bounds ahead of the pack. So why does all this matter to you as a founder or a leader or an investor? Well, it comes down to this tiny number. The business world operates on a power law. A tiny handful of companies generate almost all the returns. Owning just 0.01% of a massive 0-to-1 monopolistic success like Google is vastly more valuable than owning 100% of some mediocre, undifferentiated company that's just fighting for scraps in a highly competitive market. You have to aim for the absolute top of the curve. And that brings us to the end of our explainer. But I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. If true progress only happens when we go from 0 to 1, and if competition is truly a trap, then what unique problem are you going to solve that nobody else is even attempting? Don't just copy the past. Find your secret, make a definite plan, and go build the future. Thanks for focusing in with me today, and keep learning.